Hey, I'm Lance Rubin. Welcome to Really Deep Conversations with YA Authors, where this episode I'll be talking with Becky Albertalli, author of Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. This is an amazing book, an instant classic, huge-hearted romantic comedy, but also it's just so much more than that. It's funny, it's wonderful, it's human, and that is why I'm unbelievably excited to talk with Becky Albertalli right now. Well, in a few moments, as soon as the little theme song thing plays.
I feel like I'm getting to know you in a whole new way. Really deep conversations with YA authors.
Okay, so this is awesome. I'm here with Becky Albertalli. I just confirmed the pronunciation of her last name right before I started talking right now. Is it Albertalli or Albertalli?
So I say Albertalli because I think that's easier to say. My husband's family says both.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm delighted that you're here for this second episode. Here it is again, folks. Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. It's amazing. We're going to talk about this and other stuff. I really love it so much. So before we get into talking about Simon, I actually want to back it up a decade or two and just ask you, obviously we're both writing YA novels, ostensibly aimed toward teenagers. What were you like as a teenager? And you can answer this however you want. Were you like Simon? Were you like...
I was a lot like Simon.
Yeah.
But not in exact... I don't know. You know, now I'm writing my second book, and I'm like, I was a lot like her, too.
Of course. Of course.
I don't know how people do it. Some people write characters who are so different from them. I may not be there yet, because I was a lot like Simon. I was a theater kid,
Yes.
like in the theater group, but I was not generally the lead character, much more likely to have no lines.
Yeah, can I tell? I actually love that about Simon, and I love that like his experience in the musical is such a big part of the book, but he's not the lead, and that made it feel just even more just like a human story. Like, this is not about the lead in the musical. This is about someone who's like shouting out a couple random lines during a big crowd scene.
Oh, I played like all kinds of parts. Like I was a Harry Ishmaelite in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor.
Nice.
This is a camp play, but I actually did play a tree once.
You did it. You did the cliche. You
I
played
did.
the tree.
Yeah, it was a tree.
When you were in those musicals, did you ever feel like, wow, I want to be an actor? Or was it just like, I love this sense of community?
No, I totally wanted to be an actor too, and I love the sense of community. Like I had this amazing, just like the people who were in the theater community in my high school, and my drama teacher, who cried at my launch party too, because I think she had read the arc and saw how badass I had made the drama teacher, and I had like thanked her at the acknowledgments.
That's so wonderful.
And I was like, yeah, like hell yeah, it's based on you. Like,
what is her name? Just to shout her out.
Oh, her name is Molly Mercer.
Molly Mercer.
At the time, she was Molly Masseri.
Oh, well done.
Also, my second book main character is named Molly, but she's really named after my grandmother, Molly.
Okay, that's fair.
So,
Molly Mercer, don't get too excited when the second book comes out.
No, she's named after you too, though.
Yeah, okay. You can get kind of excited. And then, well, okay, so talk about, meanwhile, your relationship to writing as a teenager, though. Were you ever conceiving of yourself as like, I'm going to be an author one day?
Yeah, the funny thing is, you know, yes, I totally wanted to be an actress, and I totally wanted to be an author. And for me, I really view those as similar. Like, they were, you know, equally exciting daydreams and equally unlikely and far-fetched. And so, yes, I put both of those dreams on the shelf. It's pretty good that I put the acting dream away for me. Because, I think I really am a tree. You know?
Wait, let's fast forward, because I know from your bio, and I guess from talking to you a little bit, that you're also a clinical psychologist. So what was this journey for you from being a psychologist to, you know, saying, you know what, no, I am going to write a novel. Let me do this.
It was, I don't know, I think there's a lot of, like, luck involved. Like, it was basically, like, I was living in D.C.
Okay.
Working full-time at a school, and I loved the kids that I worked with at that school. But but there were stressful things about that job, paperwork and issues. And so when I had my older son in 2012, I was like, okay, I'm stepping back. Like, I'm not just taking maternity leave, I'm leaving this job. But for the most part, I stayed home with my son for that year. And then at some point, we decided we were going to move from DC to Atlanta, right around when I would have been looking for a full-time job.
Okay.
And yeah, so then there was this period of time where I was like, well, I can't find another job. I'm home, but I'm feeling like myself again and starting to sleep again. And I guess, like, I don't know. I think I had this drive to, like, do something creative. And I was like, well, I've always wanted to write a book. Maybe I'll give it one shot. And I was just like, I guess I'll try to do it. And I you know, this idea must have been, you know, floating around in my head for a while. You know, when I'm asked, like, what inspired the book, I'm like, fuck if I know. Like, I don't know. Because, like, as I remembered, it was just like, oh, yeah, this character is suddenly, like, very vivid in my head. Had this character, wrote first draft, or the first couple chapters that I drafted were like, Simon wakes up and gets dressed and checks Facebook and
the same thing,
listens to music, and drives to school, but yeah, then just like eventually it came together fairly quickly over a period, maybe like 4 months drafting, and then
you had a first draft in 4 months?
I think so. Like, when I think back to the timing, I think so. And then like another month or so revising, and I found a critique partner. And then I got an agent and a book deal, like, boom, like, which
it's amazing,
like, shocking. I mean, a lot of it was timing, you know. And I am paying my dues now, by the way. I'm currently on my 7th draft of my second book. 6 of those are rewrites.
Oh my god, yeah.
This one's not a rewrite, but it's like, it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's not a light edit either. So.
Right. Totally. No, I feel the same way, because I had kind of a charmed first novel writing experience.
Okay. Yeah.
There was definitely rewrites happening, but like, in terms of publishing stories I've heard, getting the agent and then like selling the book was pretty fortuitous, and so that now when I'm encountering, you know, exactly, paying the dues later, and it's just like, oh man, was that the only book I had in me? Oh,
that's how I feel. You're like, because at first just like, maybe this is my thing. Like, maybe I'm naturally like good at this, and then now it's kind of like, oh wait, I'm not. I'm just a regular writer, you know. And
totally. And I think we can all comfort ourselves knowing that, like, you're paying your dues somewhere. So when you're like jealous of your friend who's having an easy time, or it's just, you got to look at the macro picture of a career. You're always going to struggle somewhere. So.
Yeah.
When you're seeing people shoot out of the gate with success, it's like, then it might be harder later because you're living up to that success. You know, everybody's journey is their own, and
every book is different.
And every book is its own journey.
And trying to accept that. Yeah.
Can you talk? Can we talk a little bit more about the second book struggle, the sophomore struggle, if you will?
Yeah.
What, like? So you said you're on the 7th draft. What wasn't working about the first draft? Like,
a lot of stuff wasn't working. I have, thank God, I have the best like agent and editor behind me who are very kind, but also like no bullshit and so which has been actually very reassuring throughout this process. So I'm like, okay. They're not going to let me, like, release a steaming, like, pile of shit. Like,
of course.
And, oh, God, I hope I'm allowed to cuss on this.
Yes.
I think I've started cussing more since I wrote Simon, especially my second book, because that girl cusses even more than Simon. I had a 6-week-old baby, so my interpretation of this note may have been a little, like, off the chain, but, like, my interpretation of my first editorial letter was, like, okay, I love Simon. Let's make it more like Simon.
Wow.
Like, nothing good about the second book. It was all like, let's make it more like Simon. Let's make this more like Simon and this more like Simon.
Wow.
I think she found like a paragraph that she thought she really liked that image, but like, so I mean, I've had to like overhaul the plot several times, and I've talked to various people be like, what's the plot of the book? And I'll tell them, and then I completely change the plot. And now there are people out there who
right,
like all kinds of ideas about the plot of the book. And I'm like, oh, that was like draft 3.
That's amazing.
That's not my book anymore. You're going to be very surprised.
Right. Well, that's so cool. What an educational experience, even though I'm sure it was pretty painful.
Yeah, it's been it has been an education. I'm like growing to appreciate it. Hopefully, I'm coming closer to the end. I mean, my notes from my editor make it seem like I'm getting somewhere and improving each time, which is good.
Don't you have that fear that they're going to be like, well, we're done with you because this, Simon was great, but like this, you're not getting it. And
I have that fear like all the time.
Yeah,
I've had my agent Brooks has gotten like all kinds of phone calls from me, just like I've used up my last chance. Are they, tell me the truth? Like, I just want to know, are they close to like ending my contract?
It's so real. And with me, Denton's a 2-book thing, so I was having these struggles, but they were all pretty sequel based. It was like, I've got this character Denton who I really love, but then it's like, oh God, I'd laid out all these like loose ends obviously in the first book, and then it's like, oh man, I have to tie all these up, and this is nothing like the first book. People are going to hate it. I still kind of feel like that. The book's not coming out until February of next year. And I've gotten it to a point through, I guess it was 4 drafts, where now I really like it. Whatever happens, I feel like, okay, that's the book I intended to write. But there's definitely part of me that's like, well, people might hate that, but what am I going to do? I wrote it, and it's what I want it to be.
Well, and you have all these voices in your head, like, as you're writing it, like, I am thinking, and sometimes I'm thinking about, like, specific reviewers, which is nuts.
Right.
Like, I'm just like,
right.
Oh, I hope this isn't interpreted as a love triangle, because I know these certain reviewers hate love triangles. I don't want them to hate. And then I'm like, I can't,
Oh, yeah. No, that's a level of, thankfully I haven't really deep dived into the world of reviewers so that I know which ones like love triangles and which ones don't.
I already know what people are going to dislike about my new character, and that's like a hard thing to accept while you're writing, if you're me. Because I actually do like want to please everybody. I want my book to be the one book that everybody loves. Like,
I think you did it. You did it.
Oh,
there's so much love. No, I guess you probably know you didn't.
It's funny. I've had to be kind of convinced that Simon is generally well received. It's just very hard for me to like take that in from the inside. It just doesn't feel like.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think I have a better memory for all the when I think about like how people have responded to Simon,
right?
Like all I can think of is like they think it's cute, but they think I'm like ridiculous because I don't know what Tumblr is. Like that is like literally
that's it.
The number one piece of feedback about
you wrote the book, and that's all you're walking around thinking like, wow, people think I don't understand how Tumblr works, and that's
it. That's right. Like that's the reaction and stuff, and then
they
snack an award sticker on it, and I'm like,
right.
The fuck, like, I called it the Tumblr, right? Does that mean like, do you understand what I meant? Unlike everybody else,
I never understood people's concern with that.
I get that, so you wouldn't believe how often people will bring that to me.
Like as if you're saying it's like saying I'm going to go on the Facebook and being like,
yeah,
it's not called
it's just like they think it's like
Facebook.
I'm because I am. Because I'm 33. And
right.
It's like,
I thought
an old person, she's a mom, and she doesn't get it. And I'm like, no, but I meant, this is what I meant.
Oh, you gotta just brush that off.
I know.
I know you do.
I have to not be the only author who has like some little thing. Like
if you could go back and rewrite, you wouldn't change the way he's referring to the Tumblr, would you? Like, no, that's how Simon prefers to. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
I wouldn't, yeah.
Okay.
It's your thing, I have to ask, is your thing the whole, like, Denton's little?
That was my thing, but honestly, putting up a blog post on my website saying, like, telling the story about how people get it wrong all the time, kind of cleared up. It's significantly reduced after that.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes people do it. And also, I just kind of resign myself, like, oh, that's kind of an alternate title for the book. I never mind when people call it Denton's Little Death Date. That was never my intention, but I get that. No, I think the thing for me that I had in some reviews is when people say, when people are bothered that they don't believe that you could ever really know your death date, and like that trips them up. It's like, this is fiction.
This is
like that's just something I made up. That is like the premise of the book. So if that's going to trip you, I get it. It was eye opening to me. It was just more literal minded people are just like, nah, that wouldn't happen. You can't use like DNA and like the star charts and genetic maps to know your death date. So, but other than that, I'm really enjoying this. All right, like, did you believe that Alice found Wonderland? Do you think that would happen? You know, it's just people have very specific, you know, ways of looking at the world, and so when they bring that to art, which is part of the fun, you know, inevitably.
It actually is really interesting. Like when I am able to step back from it, I find it like endlessly fascinating how different everybody's interpretation is of the story, of the details, of the relationships. I am constantly hearing from people who are like, it was really easy to guess who Blue was, and I'm constantly hearing from people who were like, I had no clue. Like, so it's.
I thought you did that really well.
I probably wouldn't have guessed because I never guess the twist.
I kind of went back and forth. I definitely hopped around thinking it was different people. I thought you did that really well. At what point in the writing of the first draft did you know who Blue was without spoiling it?
I always knew.
You always knew? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, I think it's so nice that that this is winning awards and getting attention because, yes, it is a romantic comedy, but it's obviously so much more than that. And I think it's very quietly groundbreaking in the way that it's about these gay teens, you know, and this romantic connection is like the anchor and the heart of the book, but it felt like the literary equivalent of like releasing a big romantic comedy in theaters that would be like J-Lo and Matthew McConaughey, but it's like Matthew McConaughey and, you know, Brad Pitt, and everybody's just going to see it, and it's not about like, oh.
That is very flattering to Simon.
But
I will let him know that is who you think should play him.
Yeah. Like, it's foreseeing a future time when it's just like, love is love.
I am comfortable with the idea that like my book did not invent any, my book is not the first happy gay rom-com. It's not the first coming out story, and it's not anywhere near the first one of those things, but it's just part of the conversation. And I feel really lucky that for the most part, it's hard to say I've been invited into this conversation because I pushed myself in, which is uncomfortable to think about.
Right.
I wrote this book. But for the most part, my reaction from, just like the gay community who have reached out to me, which may be, a subset of the community, but has been positive, and that is, that's so important to me. I take that like really, really seriously. There may be a level of authenticity that I, cannot achieve in this space, and that's okay. Like my book still has a role, but I always think about the own voices.
Yes,
there are things about my book that may be less authentic than a book like Simon, but actually written by a gay man.
Right.
Of course, I want my book to get it right, but I also understand that it's not going to feel right for some people, and there are going to be some people who, even if it, hits the right notes somehow, it may be uncomfortable that this book is written by a straight woman. I think there's a place for this book written by me, but I understand that people may feel differently, and that's okay.
So we're actually coming to the end of the interview, and I've decided on what this actual last section of the interview will be called with Isabel. In the first episode, I wasn't sure, but I'm calling this time, or this section, Your Time. So in this case, it's your time, Becky, just to do whatever you want, to tell people whatever you want.
Whatever I want. I've already told you guys about the Tumblr. And
your Oreo passion is a very real thing.
Yeah, that's a very, very real thing, Lance.
Yeah.
Shoreo is, like, in the book, the Oreo world where Simon and his sisters travel in their minds.
I
like
love
that is 100% based on my own fantasies as a child. Like this is a good use of my time, I think.
Yeah.
I go to summer camp for 4 weeks in kind of the woods of Minnesota. And the food at this camp was, according to everybody, amazing. I'm just a really picky eater, so it could have been the best spaghetti, I have to admit, in the world. And I don't like spaghetti.
Sure.
I don't like pizza. So there's all kinds of things I don't like. So I would be like starving the whole summer. I was not near death's door. Like there was not a reason, to worry.
Sure.
Worry about me wasting away. But I was totally hungry like all the time, and so I had this really like vivid like, fantasy life like during summer camp of went on to be the Shoreo. I called it Oreo Milkshake River when I was a kid.
This is great. This is the origin story of the Shoreo.
It is. Actually, like picturing myself floating down a river of Oreo milkshake on a giant Oreo. And
I'm so sorry that you were hungry little Becky.
I was
doesn't
so
want to eat
hungry.
any of the food there.
I'd come home and eat so many Oreos.
That's great. Right, you're finally at peace with a bag of Oreos. This is great. Thank you so much. I love talking with you.
Me too. Thank you so. Yeah, I know this is cool. It's like we got to hang out.
Yeah, this is the most we've ever hung out. The most concentrated hangout.
I know.
So
this is a great hangout.
This is great. Well, thank you. I look forward to the next one.
Me too. Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, my pleasure.
I feel like I'm getting to know you in a whole new way. Really deep conversations with YA authors.